so, maybe toxic, this, or the other are not really the best terms to use because there's always going to be anger and upset and negative emotion whilst there isn't equality.
Yeah, I hear that. I think, I think from a lot of people I talk to, I don't think when it comes to dating and relationships, I don't think they're looking for equality.
Right.
Like, I think, so a very common thing is, let's even make it very arbitrary, right? Like, a lot of women express they want a guy who's taller than them.
Right, yeah.
That's not
right.
equal.
No.
A lot of women express that they want a guy who makes more money than them. That's also not equal. They want a guy who's older, more experienced, someone they can look up to. And that's completely fine. Like, I completely understand
But is it?
Of course it is.
But is it? Because
Yeah.
where do we learn these learn these preferences? We've been taught them.
I think it's natural. I think a lot of women express that they want a guy who can provide and protect for them. And I think it's natural because, and that's not saying you have to want that, and if you have someone you have that, it's wrong. Like, each to their own. But I think the reason I think it's more natural as opposed to social conditioning is because we see this with other species. We see this in animals as well. It's not a coincidence that, a woman wants to find a man who can protect her because when she's pregnant, she's the one who's vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? Or like we could say that, that she wants a guy who is, I don't know, who has a good job or whatever, because if she's going to take time out of work to child rear or whatever, then she has to make sure she was with someone who can keep a stable home or whatever it is. So I think there are some things that are kind of instinctual. That doesn't mean that everybody's like this and that we are bound to these things. But because the thing is, I'll be honest, like, we live in a day and age where, I don't know if you know this, but single women under the age of 30 actually out-earn their single male counterparts. But if they go on their date, they want the man to pay. Do you see what I'm saying? They're not looking to split, whatever. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there are some things that we have advanced in our society as individuals under the law. But then when it comes to dating, I don't think people are looking for equality. I think we look for different things, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, we all have our I am not in a circle. I myself never expect another person to pay. It's just not who I am. And like,
do you like it if a man pays for you?
No.
You don't like it?
No, I feel indebted. I'd much rather just split things.
I hear that.
Especially if
I've heard
I
that
think
before.
I'm not going to see that person again, I couldn't think of anything worse than walking away feeling like I'm indebted to someone and that they had like contributed to something that I'm not and I'm not going to see them again.
I think that's a really nice mindset. I don't think a lot of people have that mindset though.
But I think because my like close friends do, so I think obviously we have our own echo chambers, don't we?
Of
so
course.
I think like that's kind of what I am. But then I grew up in an environment, where my dad and my stepdad now, because my mum and dad are separated, always paid. We'd all go out for dinners.
Yes.
It would always be my dad who paid. So I did grow up seeing that. But from my first relationship, when I was like 16, I've just always been very much like I want things to be equal. My mum is like a huge she's always spoken to me about that. I think I was brought up and she's like hugely liberal and definitely let me make my own mistakes, but she always they earned very differently.
Sure.
But she wanted to contribute the equivalent, if that makes sense, which I think makes sense.
As in make it like 50-50?
As in like contribute like what she could that was equivalent to the because if someone is earning 100 grand a year and someone is earning 10 grand a year, they can't contribute 50-50.
I see. She wants to contribute proportionately.
Yeah, exactly. Which
Right.
I think realistically, if you're in like a relationship, especially if you are someone who is then gonna be an at-home mum for however long, and you're looking at things like that, and maybe earning a small amount of money in whatever way you are.
Yeah.
50-50 exactly as is might not be doable.
So let me ask you a question. Playing devil's advocate. If, for example, let's say, if you woke up in a few years' time, you're like, I want to have a family, husband, etc. And let's say you've done your studies, you're a sex therapist, as well as performing, whatever it is that you want to do. And let's say you're earning good money. And let's say your partner was earning half the amount. Would you be happy to bear the majority of the financial responsibility for the rest of your life with that?
Yeah, I always
partnership?
have. I've always earned more than my partners, and it's been, one of my partners, when I first bought my house, bought with them.
Yeah.
And everything that we worked out, it was an equal contribution, but proportionate, if that makes sense.
So you contributed more for everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. I think you're an exception though, because when I talk to other women, they don't want to be providing for a man,
right,
long term. They may do it for a little bit.
Providing. I just sort of saw it as us being equal, because we were contributing what we could out of what we had. So
of course, I mean, look, you completely make sense. Do you know what I mean? And you know, there are certain things about myself that are the exceptions to the rule. But objectively, I'm looking at everyone else, what everyone else says, what people choose, etc.
Yeah.
Even if a woman can do that, she doesn't want to.
Right.
And I think this goes back to saying, while we have advanced as a society in certain areas, when it comes to dating, I think there are some things that are either still quite instinctual, or that people aren't looking to be necessarily equal in everything. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you want someone with the same values as you. Yeah, it's interesting. Is there anything you want to...
I think especially as actors as well, we're always in and out of work, and I always just think really when you're in a partnership, you just kind of pick up and help the other partner as and when you can anyway, because it kind of tends to move like this.
Yes.
So for me, it's always just sort of, when it comes to finances, like for me, equality is key. Like I definitely have never ever in my history of dating had any desire to be a kept woman, as they say.
Oh, of course. Not like, oh, you're kept in the house or whatever.
Yeah. But even just in terms of having everything provided, that's never been. But I think when I was saying about preferences are learned, it's when you talk about things like women who specifically like, I want a man taller than me. Like I get it, but also like that's learned.